Watch this.
The point was to give parents more control, but the trickle-down effect of a new Idaho law is giving them more paperwork to sign in schools. Now parents are being asked for permission for what some might consider a common courtesy. Idaho's wildfires are getting under control, but that doesn't mean the Red Cross isn't ready to jump in at a moment's notice. We've got an inside look at what it takes to make an evacuation shelter. You know, one significant resurrection famously took 3 days. This one took just 8 minutes. But we are updating the story 3 days later, so kind of the same, right? The least regulated state in the nation. It's a mantra that's been repeated by Governor Brad Little since 2019, since he took it upon himself to cut red tape and streamline our government regulations when it comes to administrative code. And Governor Little sang the same tune last week, least regulated state in the nation, when he announced another 466 pages of regulations being ripped from the code books. Now, granted, the reality of regulations is a bit boring. Deals with everything from the Barley Commission to the Tax Commission. But the message of that mantra has been picked up over the last few years by anyone who wants to point out the hypocrisy of least regulated state in the nation and all the restrictive laws passed by the state legislature. For example, the one we talked about yesterday regarding parental rights. In an effort to keep medical providers from performing medical procedures on kids without their parents' permission, Senate Bill 1329 is having a kind of cascading effect. The law covers a wide range of medical rights, including behavioral health and sexual assault, which we touched on yesterday. It also got Debbie in Boise to ask, are you aware what it did to the schools? The nurse can't help children with a Band-Aid, ice pack, not without parental consent. What the heck, she says. Idaho Code describes healthcare service as a service for diagnosis, screening, examination, prevention, treatment, cure, care, or relief of any physical or mental health condition, illness, injury, defect, or disease. So it's a bit broad, yes, we know that, which is why different school districts are interpreting the law, well, differently. Debbie was right for the Boise School District. They sent out a letter to parents about their updated parental consent policy saying the new law now requires parental consent before non-life-threatening medical services, meaning even Band-Aids, routine first aid, over-the-counter headache medications, and mental health check-ins, those cannot be provided to a student without an okay from a parent. Now schools have to make sure a consent form is signed ahead of time before they can do anything. So Hunter Funk checked with the schools. Their consent form medications, I should say, and treatments of injuries are common. But Band-Aids and basic first aid, this is kind of where you just go, wait. How far are we going with this?
Exactly. You nailed it. Nurses can't do their jobs. Counselors can't be there for mental health services. That is until the parents sign that consent form, right? And they have to agree to allow it. Well, while Boise School District says they aren't a healthcare provider and don't diagnose medical conditions, they do provide services that are restricted by the new law. According to the statute, it states that anytime an individual provides a healthcare service like examinations and care, parental consent must first be received. Now, it's broad, but can prevent schools from doing anything like giving the treatment of a Band-Aid to an injury. Now, a one-time waiver to start the school year will work, and waivers for parents to sign like this are not new, but because of the new law, it has schools taking additional steps to make sure they're not breaking the law. It applies to all students 18 and under. Boise School District sent an email to parents about the adjustments because of the new law. Boise School District also sent us a statement about what they're telling staff. They say, quote, if a child requires non-life-threatening medical care or mental health treatment and no parent is available to provide consent promptly, please just use your best judgment and provide the care that is needed. West Ada School District taking precautions as well. The district said West Ada has been using the same consent to treat protocol for over 15 years. While we maintain our established practices, we're now operating with an increased level of awareness in light of recent legislation. Now, remember that parental consent is not necessary if it is an emergency, specifically if it's to prevent death or impairable physical injury to a minor, or Brian, after a reasonable, diligent effort where a nurse can't contact the parent and the minor might have life or health is seriously endangered in that delay of care.
Right, if they can't get a hold of a parent,
Right.
then they just kind of let that go. I was just looking at like West Ada. they have always required the acetaminophen or the ibuprofen.
Mm-hmm.
You have to consent to that ahead of time, but it doesn't say anything on that form about Band-Aids or anything like that.
Right.
So.
My mom is a secretary for a school. I talked to her about this. I said, hey, do you know? And she goes, wait, a Band-Aid? I didn't realize that we need to do this. Now the school district is looking into that as well.
Yeah.
So.
And Boise's saying, look, let's just be reasonable with this, which makes sense. All right. Thank you very much, Hunter. We are in the heat of wildfire season, as you probably guessed from being outside or just watching the news of late. There are so many wildfires burning out there. Lake Cascade started calling it the West Mountain Complex up there, the Snag Fire being the worst of those in that area. Altogether, those fires have burned more than 25,000 acres. Garden Valley also has a complex of fires, the one called the Middle Fork, and none of those are contained. Line Point Fire still burning in the Hells Canyon Reservoir. It's almost 32,000 acres, 42% contained. So there's progress being made. But all that being said, there's a lot of effort going into that containment of those. And the Idaho Red Cross, they are ready to jump in whenever they are needed. Aspen Shumpert found out what exactly they can do to help.
Weeks of wildfires scorching eastern Oregon and Idaho. Cities and towns under evacuation orders. Ranchers losing cattle, others losing their homes.
With the paddock fire, it was threatening 3 different counties. It wasn't just threatening, it was burning in 3 different counties.
The American Red Cross helps with disaster relief in these moments.
Second week in July, we've been nonstop with wildfires throughout Idaho.
It has been my busiest year for sure.
They've already opened 16 shelters in the state just this season. Red Cross says that's a high number.
These are very, very stressful times for people. They're coming for a safe harbor. We're there to give them that.
Something that takes months to prepare for.
And we're spending a lot of time in April, May, really doing trainings, getting the community prepared.
Looking at different suitable facilities, and then when it comes time to go, we have an idea of where we can go.
Their goal is to have at least one designated shelter location in each county, if not more.
If a fire does happen, we already have a plan in place to be able to respond to that due to our preparation work.
And volunteers ready to help out.
If we had to get air scrubbers in there that help the air be easier to breathe, how would we go about doing that? We're looking for showers, bathrooms that are all ADA accessible to be able to make sure that we can help everyone.
That includes places like schools, churches, rec centers that can hold a minimum of 50 people, or fairgrounds that can take large animals. When a request from county emergency managers or sheriff's departments come in, Red Cross moves fast to get a shelter available.
We can get them open very quickly. The promise that we make is within 4 to 6 hours, but we have strategically placed our assets around this region so that they're never more than a couple hours away from any of our any of our towns that we serve.
Sending their shelter trailers out to its pre-planned location.
It's got 100 cots, 200 blankets, some comfort kits, those hygiene items, coffee maker, and some charging units.
They say shelter attendance varies every disaster.
Sometimes they have people to stay with, but they need some food. They need to be fed, so they'll come for lunch and dinner, and to get information, get a hot shower.
Red Cross says Idahoans are resilient, not always wanting to leave their property when encouraged to evacuate.
And that's okay. We want to make sure that everybody knows we're here.
An operation that takes help.
We can't do it alone, and so we really work with the community as well. We have a lot of partners with grocery stores and other organizations that help supply some of that water when we need it.
And many volunteers.
Sleeves up, hearts open, all in.
The 2 biggest things Red Cross asks for from the public during these times of disaster are people and funds. Having enough volunteers to keep everything operating, and money is the best way the community can support when they're seeing other communities experiencing wildfires. Red Cross says it's the most effective way for them to get people what they need during these times. Brian, people can make those donations at their local Red Cross chapters, or they can use a recently set up text to donate, which guides them through an online donation process, and they can text Red Cross to 90999. And
it's like with wildfires, it's not like a hurricane or anything where this is a long-term station they set up. It's there for maybe a few days until they can get back, maybe a week at longest. Yeah, but to set it up in 4 to 6 hours and have the resources to be able to get there and to do that, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, Aspen.
I christen thee, Idaho. May God bless her and all that sail in her.
Terry Stackley christening the USS Idaho last March in Connecticut. Stackley was the sponsor of the ship. That's why she got the duties to do the christening. It's a Virginia-class submarine, and she broke open a bottle of water over the boat. Not just any bottle of water, bottle filled with water from 4 of Idaho's lakes. So that was the third in the 5-step journey of a ship to become a member of the U.S. Navy fleet. Last week marked the beginning of the 4th step. That would be the launch. The $2.6 billion nuclear-powered boat is the 26th of its kind, and it will now be subject to a series of outfitting, testing, and crew certification to make sure USS Idaho, make sure she is fit for duty. It's a process that takes about a year. So then that final step, that's going to be the acceptance, should everything hold together, and that will be marked by a commissioning ceremony. If all goes well, this will be the 5th naval vessel dating back to 1863 to assume an active role in our nation's military with the name USS Idaho. Also, a reminder, to see all of our extensive coverage of USS Idaho, just go to our website at ktvb.com. Something else we have covered extensively, Paris Olympics, which wrapped up on Sunday. Maybe you've seen a little bit of it. Athletes, they've headed home since then after their Olympic experience, including Caldweller and boxer Alyssa Mendoza. But you have a chance to welcome her back officially with a parade and a reception tomorrow at noon. It's going to end at the Indian Creek Steakhouse. You can see the map there on the screen there, but not anymore. It's not just the athletes, though, that are still recuperating from running around the City of Light. It's also the fans and the unofficial athletes, like Twin Falls runner Kate D'Angelo. Kate was chosen out of over 400,000 people to run on the Paris Olympic Marathon route. She did it between the men's and women's races.
I'm feeling very lucky and very honored and privileged to be able to do this race because it's never been done before at an Olympics.
And to do that between the men's and women's races, she had to do it at night, and that's what she did. She ran the 10K on the streets of Paris with over 20,000 other runners from around the world. She says it was an incredible experience because even in the middle of the night, so many people were out there cheering all of them on and cheering her on. She said, hopefully the 2028 LA Olympics might do the same thing. Get everybody else to kind of figure out, get a feel for what it's like to be kind of an athlete in the Olympics. D'Angelo is now back home in Twin Falls. The end of an era for one Treasure Valley staple, for another, an expansion, and yet another welcomes the next generation. Morgan Romero explains all of that in today's 411.
The historic Victorian home known as the Vicky is officially demolished. The owner, Sean Whitaker, was restoring the historic home on Eustick Road when it caught fire back in March. Whitaker says the fire started after staining pads were left out and combusted. No humans were hurt, but his 2 dogs died in the fire. Whitaker still plans to rebuild the Vicky. The Pullman-Moscow Regional Airport is getting bigger. Today, a new terminal in the airport officially opened. The new $90 million building is over 40,000 square feet bigger than the last terminal. Plus, there are pre- and post-concessions and more parking. Back here in the Treasure Valley, Micron also expanded today. They officially opened their new Early Learning Center. Micron partnered with the YMCA to run the facility. The 124 students enrolled will focus on STEM. Their first day is September 3rd. Multiple Nampa schools are getting fresh fruit and vegetables this year. It's all thanks to a grant to promote healthier eating habits. And it's Boise State Move-In Day. More than 2,200 new Broncos are packed up and moving into their dorms as we speak. There are tours of campus all day long and a neighborhood night tonight at 6 at all resident halls with games and an opportunity to meet new people. That's your 411 on the 208. I'm Morgan Romero.
Apparently, Vicky called us and said that Bill is still alive and doing great. She just wanted people to know that he is still alive, doing great. Didn't want his friends to find out that he was not doing so great. Not doing so great as in dead, which he is not. The reports of his death are greatly exaggerated, the often used misquote of American humorist Mark Twain. In this case, it is used properly because we did greatly exaggerate the death of Bill Hughes. On Monday, we aired a redial of a story from 2004. A Walmart wedding between Bill Hughes and Pat Bird. And we ended the update by reporting, sadly, Pat and Bill had both passed away since we first ran the story. But then we got that message from Vicky, who has been Bill's caregiver for the past 18 years. Well, she told us otherwise, and we just had to see it for ourselves.
It's the wedding day they had always wanted.
We just wanted a simple, short wedding with our families and friends.
Pat Bird and Bill Hughes spend so much time at their favorite store.
Every day.
We come here, we're here every day. We don't miss a day.
Pretty much in here every single day.
They figured the best place to find wedded bliss was right next to the wheelbarrows at Walmart.
A wedding at Walmart.
That's right.
Yeah, I think it's great. Only in Idaho.
Now, what do I do when she comes?
You see, Bill and Pat are not your ordinary Walmart customers.
Do we hold hands? Oh, okay.
Because they're here more than most employees.
Every day. Sometimes we'll say 5 and 6 hours.
Bill Hughes was a bit surprised to see himself on TV 20 years after his big day.
I come running out and told Vicky, I'm on TV, Vicky. And she turned in, she couldn't believe it.
But not nearly as shocked to hear what was said after. Sadly, both Bill and Pat have passed away since we first showed you that story. Pat just 2 years later, and Bill, we believe in our research, passed away in 2013. Well, obviously that research was incomplete.
I'm a ghost.
Because Bill,
we go to secondhand stores,
at 71, is still very much alive and doing very well.
From 9:30 to 2:30, and we just go to secondhand stores and go for rides, go to the park, feed the ducks, and this different stuff.
That sounds like a pretty good life.
Yeah.
The friends and family of Walmart.
Yeah. And our redial reminded him of a pretty good time in that life.
Take me, Pat.
Be my wedded wife.
Be my wedded wife.
Bill, you may kiss your bride.
Come here, honey.
Bill and Pat still went to Walmart every day after their wedding day.
Yes.
Every day.
Every day.
Still.
Till she got sick and went to the hospital.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
It may have been a short honeymoon, but Bill has no regrets.
No regrets.
And no hard feelings over our greatly exaggerated report. Well, I'm sorry I prematurely announced your death, Bill.
That's okay.
It's also nice to see he has the same laugh that he had 20 years ago, and he's not afraid to show it either. Bill told us he was in a bad place, really, though, after Pat passed away 2 years after they got married. Said he was living in a friend's dirt floor shack, eating out of cans that he got from the food bank, and he had ballooned to about 325 pounds. He had even overdosed on his medication a couple of times because, well, Bill says he can't read. Well, that's when Vicky, who sent us the message on Monday, that's when she came into the picture. She got Bill's meds under control, got his weight down, and offered him a stable and loving home, which is why Bill says she saved his life and why he's still doing well, doing great 18 years later.
have some inclement weather to talk about this evening. We have multiple flash flood warnings that are in place for eastern Oregon right now, and one of those is a little bit smaller than the other, but these both cover burn scar areas. So you can see the one to the north is much larger and is seeing the rainfall right now. The one to the south has seen a little bit more clearing, but this zone in particular is for the Little Valley burn scar. And you can see if we move now to the north that the larger flash flood warning is in place for Cow Valley and Durkee burn scars. And this does not include Huntington, but it does include a big stretch of I-84 going to the north. So if you or someone you know is headed in that direction, please let them know that they need to be a little bit careful, because when we have flash flooding on burn scars, we can easily see rock slides, mudslides, and debris flow. So that's the biggest risk with some of these conditions. Overall, though, when we talk about this setup in particular, the moisture is not really the big game changer, because it's so dry, in fact, that we are seeing more fire danger than flooding danger. And so where the lightning is striking the ground, we could all see new fires starting. And so a lot of that activity has been more towards eastern Oregon, but also parts of the central and west central mountains. You can see a new thunderstorm popping up near Cascade now. So overall, when we talk about this activity, it will continue to dwindle tonight. This is not a multiple day setup, so tonight will be it. But you can see we have several hours continuing of more of this activity is expected. More lightning and gusts of up to 50 miles an hour is possible where these thunderstorms are. And again, brief heavy rain that we have as well. And we saw that with some of the flash flood warnings in place. Other than the storms right now, those temperatures are pretty comfortable, so it's nice to be outside. You can see 80s in many of the valley areas, down to 55 right now over in Stanley, so a little on the cooler side, and towards the mid 80s for the Magic Valley right now. So for the high for tomorrow, it will be just a touch warmer than what we're seeing today. It'll be more of the sunshine, more of the smoky sunshine, but then we get a big bump in temperatures as we get closer to Saturday, and that will be the hottest day that we see for about the next 7 or so, because you can see those temperatures are getting a little bit closer to the lower 90s and even upper 80s, which is great news for anyone heading out to the Western Idaho Fair next week.
Today on the trickle-down effect of Senate Bill 1329, the continuing coverage of this parental rights bill that kind of passed this last legislative session. This one from Bob. With this new law you were just describing where nurses can't even give Band-Aids out, what's the sense of having a nurse when she can't do anything about it? For a Band-Aid, the government should mind their own business. Never again can Idaho claim to be the least regulated state. Are you listening, Governor Little and legislators? And then this one here. Seems as though in their attempt to solve a non-existent problem, legislature has created more work for school personnel. Par for the course, says Jack in Boise. And finally, how does the new parental consent law impact first responders like EMTs, search and rescue, and ski patrol? Asked Karen in Boise. We weren't trying to be like Chicken Little here and saying the sky is falling with this new law, but this is just an effect. By the way, this will not affect emergency services. Doesn't include that at all. But we were just merely pointing out the fact that the Boise School District had to send out an email to parents that said this now includes Band-Aids. Schools have parents sign consent forms all the time. It's been going on for years. But now we're getting a little into the weeds, aren't we? We'll see you tomorrow.